Alright, hey, what's going on there, folks? Earthmaster here, checking in kind of early, still here, at least on my time zone. It is May 15th, 2020, 8:23 a.m. And once again, West Coast time, and overnight, or I should say earlier this morning, Nevada had a pretty good, strong earthquake out there, 6.5 magnitude quake, striking the region there, just east of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Don't you dare, don't want to lose my voice. And that's a pretty good sized shaker out there, but not the largest quake that's ever struck Nevada. I guess there's been a couple similar sized quakes throughout the last century or so. The most, I should say the largest earthquake that's ever struck Nevada, just for information, was a 7.3 earthquake up by Winnemucca, Nevada, which is well north of this region. Back in 1915, that was a 7.3 that struck, and that earthquake still holds the records there for the largest quake in Nevada. But 6.5, definitely a good shaker out there, and also in a zone or an area that is secondary to the San Andreas fault system, as far as relieving pressure out there along these the plate boundary. A pretty good sized quake, it looks like, coming in somewhere. I'll have to check back on that here after the update. I do want to bring up a couple maps here, a couple different maps, and show you guys the area that it struck. And you can obviously see, right, that big square, at least on this map. This is the older map from the Caltech website, shows the kind of some of the fault systems out there, and also the numerous earthquakes that are taking place. If you look over there to the west, just west of the blue and red activity, is where we've seen, a couple weeks, at least a couple weeks, few weeks of activity, earthquake activity, north of the Mammoth Lakes region, north of the Long Valley supervolcano area. And of course, they did see a sizable quake within this region, not a big one like this, but that area of activity there to the west plays in part of the continued stress out here along the west coast, with the San Andreas fault system still continuing to be locked. And of course, that stress needs to go somewhere. It has slowly made its way to an area where it just went ahead and released some pressure. Now that's good, but that doesn't magically make all the stress disappear on the San Andreas fault system. And that's, like I mentioned, this area just east of Mono Lake up there is kind of where we've seen that weakening, if you will, of the crust. I haven't had any caffeine yet, folks, but it will be coming here pretty soon, because I need to wake up. And these guys have had quite a bit of earthquakes here already. A lot of big aftershocks popping off. I do want to bring up, see if I can find the Did You Fill It reports. There was quite a few folks filling it throughout the, oh gosh darn it, it's not going to let me on this one. Throughout the region, into parts of California as well, filling it down into the Central Valley. It looks like places like Sacramento and other areas seen that as well, or felt it, I should say. I want to show you the Yellowstone overview real quick here. This is just that's that 6.5 there in Nevada showing up all across those stations there. So pretty sizable quake there. I'm trying to find my other map here. Just got so many windows open. That one won't work. Of course, this is what happens when you don't have caffeine, folks. So today, the one-day magnitude 2.5 and above earthquakes out here, showing roughly about 42 earthquakes in this region, and a lot of fault systems out there, folks. I'm not for sure exactly which specific fault system this may have occurred on, but obviously with the surface deformation, right, from the mountains and stuff like that, there's obvious unnamed faults pretty much everywhere throughout the state of Nevada. Probably thousands of fault systems out there. The region, I guess they're calling it, what is it, Walker Lane is the area that the excuse me, professional folks are calling it out there. And it's an area, I'm going to read a little bit of information here. It's an area where they're talking about, well, I guess I can just go ahead and show you guys real quick here before we go into that map. Let's see here. And this is, when did this thing get put out here? Oh, I don't see a date, but it was some time ago. This is about the Walker Lane, this area where the 6.5 struck this morning. They're talking about it where it could be the new plate boundary, if you will, in what, 7.8 million years or so. They're talking about, you know, at least here in California where I live, my mom and dad were always telling me that California, if they have a big enough earthquake out here, California is going to fall off into the ocean. Well, that's not necessarily going to happen. It just doesn't support it, right? The plate dynamics and whatnot. There's a little article saying California won't fall into the ocean, but it could get nudged hundreds of miles offshore, making Nevada the new coastline of the continent. Here they talk about scientists have combined decades of data and the latest technology to study the Walker Lane. It's an approximately 1,000 kilometer long, 625 miles corridor, riddled with hundreds of earthquake faults. And that's this area where the 6.5 kind of struck here earlier this morning. Several researchers at the university are part of a group of scientists who are studying the massive system of relatively discontinuous faults that run through western Nevada. It is known as the Walker Lane, and in about 7.8 million years or so could become the new tectonic boundary, like I mentioned, between the North American and Pacific plates. The group at the university is relatively rare, as it includes expertise that analyzes fault zones at 3 different time scales from tens of millions of years to the past approximately 2 million years. This combination of expertise is needed to understand the evolution of something potentially as grand as the Walker Lane. Let's see here. The notion that a major strike-slip fault system is developing just east of the Sierra Nevada is not new, but recent technology advances have made it easier to locate and map the numerous earthquake faults in the region, giving more evidence to the speculative yet plausible geological idea. And they go back into a lot of history, but it's kind of interesting, folks. 7.8 million years or so, you might have some coastal property out there in Nevada. I'll leave this link if you want to look. There's a bunch of different articles in regards to this Walker Lane area, but that's kind of where this activity has occurred, in that specific area of Nevada, just east of the Sierra Nevada range, east of super volcano, or Long Valley super volcano, out there in the regionous mountainous area, right, where there's hundreds of different fault systems. No continuous long stretches like you would find like in California, but many different deformated faults, I should say. Is that even a word? Deformated? Deformation of faults. So zooming in just a little bit closer to the region, Tonopah kind of sits over here to the east by a few miles or so. Been through there numerous times. I'm sure quite a few folks definitely woke up with that. Hawthorne up here to the north as well, and Walker Lake way up. I don't even know if that still has water in it, but these small little communities definitely feeling the shaking, if you will, from that 6.5 this morning. That's going to be this larger circle here, and you can see a pretty good size spread out area of aftershocks, not just in any one specific location here. We're even seeing some activity well to the south and east here, away from the main epicenter, and that's very interesting here. But that could be a sign of some, well, like I mentioned in the article there, with hundreds of different smaller faults out here, it's possible we could be seeing some other larger quakes as well on many different faults out here, if indeed the pressure is great enough out here, which I believe it is. We'll have to keep an eye on that, especially with this spreading out of activity. Could trigger some more moderate to strong quakes within the area. But for now, that 6.5 is the stronger one. Aftershock activity has consisted of quite a few 3s and some 4s in there as well. Some lower 4 magnitudes being reported. And as I mentioned, lots of 3s, 4.5, 4.8 there. Aftershock, quite a few. It actually looks like they had a 5.1 there as well, pretty close to the epicenter. 4.9 pretty close there as well. There was a 4.6 a ways away there. Let's go ahead and check out the satellite view to see what the mountainous range looks like out there. It doesn't really help too much, but yeah, there's definitely a cluster of fault systems out there, folks. You know, with these mountains out there. If you've ever been through Nevada, there's just nothing but mountains and small little valleys, and that's all built up over millions of years of tectonic stress. And you know, this is definitely earthquake country out there. Looks like there may be some type of, what do we got here? Some type of volcanic dome out there. At least in the past it may have been. And yeah, this is also old ancient volcano activity land out here as well, way in the past. And this one here sits about 2 miles from the activity, but nothing showing up in that region as far as volcanic activity goes. This is purely plate tectonic stress, which leads me to believe, folks, with this you know, with this inland activity that we're seeing, I think the San Andreas fault system is more stressed than ever, and it'd be wise to definitely be on guard if you're down there in Southern California. Now, of course, this is a ways away from Southern California, obviously, but it just points to the activity that we've seen over the past couple months or so. You know, with this activity to the north of Ridgecrest, right? They did have that, you know, couple 7s there, or did have that large 7.1 last year. But with the activity that we've seen up here to the north, you can go ahead and bring it back so I can show you. It was just this one day here is just not showing. I'm trying to explain, and the lack of caffeine is adding to that as well. 7 days, let's go 30 days, 2.5 and above, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And that doesn't even show all of the activity. Excuse me. Maybe we can go 7 days, all magnitudes here. I don't know how long my voice is going to continue here, but we will try. So you got the earthquake activity, aftershock activity continuing there now for almost a year in Ridgecrest. The activity up here around Mammoth Lakes is the area that I'm talking about. This little spot here east of Mono Lake is new activity. Of course, there's always swarming activity around Mammoth Lakes, but this specific area right here around Mono Lake, isn't that Momo character, that one scary looking, I think it was a Japanese character that yeah, that freaked people out, Momo. There on YouTube. Oh, let me tell you, that thing is pretty funny looking. All this activity up here to the east of Mono Lake does have a major part in the activity that we've seen today in Nevada. Just a ways away here to the east, And all this activity here still sits east of the Sierra Nevadas. A lot of stress, folks, out here on the West Coast, the North American and the Pacific Plate. And that's does, believe it or not, have to do with the activity up here to the north as well. The activity they've seen in Salt Lake City, right? You can kind of see a line of activity, a lot of stress being built up out here. There's obviously earthquake activity in Southern Cal, but no major release of stress down there. And all this area out here is just kind of getting compacted and deformed and squeezed, if you will, you know, on a large scale. That's why we see these we've seen the larger quakes up here in Salt Lake City. A lot of activity up here in Idaho, kind of stretching up right against the old North American craton there, where it kind of ends there in parts of Wyoming there. We don't see too many quakes inland inside of that area, that old craton region there, where land relatively stable over the last few millions of years or so. But all this activity here kind of getting squeezed in between here. It's got to be squeezed. It's got to go somewhere, right? Squeeze, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but there's definitely a lot of stress being built up out here. And that's all due because of the North American plate here as a whole, with the Pacific plate interacting with each other. There just hasn't been a lot of activity up here to the north, which is kind of troubling as well, at least as far as Northern California and the Cascadia subduction zone goes. That's something to watch very closely. But you know, this all plays a part, folks, in one another. You know, a lot of people claim that, well, Idaho's, you know, 1,000 miles away or hundreds of miles away. There's no way this could be related to anything to do with the San Andreas Fault, but it does. It's a plate boundary out there, major plate boundary that is a connecting point and a stress point for a much larger plate over here, which is the Pacific plate. And they, you know, it's you gotta look at the bigger picture of the two, and all these quakes here are just a part of it, folks. So it's good to be prepared now more than ever. Just kind of reassuring the stresses out here along the West Coast right now are incredible. And it's good to be on guard out here. I tell you what, Nevada's going to be shaking for quite a while. If they have those, like I mentioned, those smaller fault systems, we could see a tremendous amount of aftershock activity like we're already seeing. Let's see what I got. Let's go 1 day, all magnitude, so we can see if they included the smaller quakes yet in this region, which I don't believe. I don't think they have. It just, well, yeah, it looks like maybe a 1.9, but I guarantee you there's way more earthquakes than what's going on here on the screen. And a station you can tell from, at least for now, because I'm going to try and get a little bit closer station once I get some caffeine and see which stations I need to add, is Mammoth Lakes station coming up here. Show you guys. Man, just no caffeine. It's just like, oh. Let's see if I can get this to pop up. Come on, where you guys at? That's Yellowstone right there. That's kind of interesting activity. Anyway, Mammoth Lakes, that's a distant earthquake there. Guaranteed to be coming off the one in Nevada. But there's definitely way more earthquake activity. You can see all these little smaller distant quakes. Those are all earthquakes coming in to the Nevada region where that 6.5 hit, but this station is just a little bit too far away to pick up super sharp quakes, but it did pick up a larger quake there that just struck the Nevada region, probably another 3 or so. In fact, I think I've seen that thing come through. Okay, it looks like it was another 4.6 magnitude quake, probably. At least I got it on my phone, I believe. But that was about 13 minutes ago, so yeah, I believe that's about right. Hold on a second here. But I'm not seeing it yet on the USGS map. Why not? Okay, kind of strange. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end this update video real quick, folks. Just be on guard out here. West Coast, obviously anywhere out here in the Intermountain West region, right? You wouldn't think it, but it's all part of the big picture here with the North American plate and the Pacific plate, with a lot of stress, folks. A lot of stress out here on these plate boundaries. So the longer this goes on, I think the larger this quake's going to be down here in Southern Cal on the ever so quiet San Andreas fault system right there. Just too darn quiet, folks. I'm going to end this update video, and I'll still be here on the live stream. So let me get rid of this video real quick. Have a good day, folks.